Welcome back to another installment of Strangest Locations. Today we're going to talk about Edinburgh, Scotland, but it's going to be a little different because this is probably not going to just be a one part. It's a lot to cover.
Multi-series here on Edinburgh, Scotland.
Were you going to say Edinburgh?
Yeah, Edinburgh.
Is it German now?
For a lot of Americans, we're separated from our roots, where our ancestors came from. We do DNA work or invest a lot of time and energy into tracing our family trees back. We did that, and we used one of the famous sites about your ancestry, and we had Scotland as one of our main sections there.
Both of us.
So we were interested in that, and we're going to do a little series on Edinburgh and Scotland. So lots of ghosts there, lots of history. It goes way back. So
buckle up, it's going to be fun. So Edinburgh became the capital of Scotland in 1437. It replaced, I think it's called Scone. They moved the throne to the Edinburgh Castle, also in 1437, after the assassination of King James I, on top of an extinct volcano, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, I don't want to live on top of an extinct volcano. I'm
Just
sorry.
in case.
Yeah, no, seems like a bad idea.
Right.
But Edinburgh Castle has a long and rich history, is one of the oldest fortified places in Europe, and it has been a royal residence, a military garrison, prison, and a fortress. So a lot of things throughout the years. Queen Margaret died in the castle in 1093, and if you think about that, that's a long time ago. 1093. That's like 1,000 years after the Common Era.
Yeah,
you know,
that's crazy.
If you think about time. So I mean, that place has been there. It's got to hold a lot of psychic energy.
Before it was Edinburgh, it was something else. Like that area is just so much history there.
They built a chapel in her honor, Queen Margaret, as well.
After she became a saint.
Right. Yeah. It's called St. Margaret's Chapel. Go figure. It is one of the oldest buildings in Edinburgh, and it still remains. They do christenings and weddings there still. So
that's really cool. I'd love to have a wedding in a place so historical.
I guess if you want ghosts in your wedding,
just ghostly figures in your wedding photos.
Right.
Oh, that's just George. The castle has seen many wars, sieges, and has changed hands many times in the 1300s between the Scots and the English. The Scots retook the castle in 1314 in an incredible night raid. In the 1650s, it became a military base, and barracks were added to the building to house 600 troops. Prisoners were locked in the vaults below Crown Square. Between 1757 and 1814, the vaults housed hundreds of prisoners of war. The castle is still used by the military to this day. They also offer tours of the castle, and it is one of the biggest tourist attractions in Scotland. The history, scenery, and architecture aren't the only things that attract people to Edinburgh, though. The spirits are another big attraction. It's no secret that the castle is haunted. Many visitors report seeing ghosts and having their own experiences with strange occurrences while in the castle. One of the most famous ghosts is that of the Piper. Legend has it a piper was sent into the tunnels to explore and was instructed to play while he explored the tunnels so that he could be followed. But it fell silent, and the piper disappeared, just vanished. And it's said that to this day you can still hear the pipes underneath the cobblestone roads.
Well, that's a bit eerie.
That's creepy.
Another musically inclined spirit was that of a drummer that was caught, and they said he was spying, and you have to think that these like people were actually children, because they did use a lot of children for soldiers back in those days.
If you were like in the double digits, you hit 10, you were old enough to basically be a soldier.
So this actual child, he was, well, they don't know for certain if he was a child, I'll have to say that, but he was decapitated for spying. And his final request was to play the drums one last time before he died. So they still hear the drums Well, the first time they heard the drums after he died was 1650, right before a battle. And since then, whenever they've heard it, it's been a harbinger of danger. So whenever something's going down, he starts playing the drums, which makes you think, was he a spy, or were they wrong about that? Because why would
somebody against the castle help the castle?
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? So it's very interesting, though.
Yes, but it also makes me really sad for him. If he was a kid, like him
Right.
and the piper were thought to possibly be children.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a spirit of a noblewoman from the 16th century, and she's said to be seen in the oldest parts of the castle, either like wandering around or sometimes she's crying. And she's thought to be Janet Douglas, who was accused of witchcraft by King James V.
Nice.
And everyone knew that those accusations were baseless. It was a revenge thing. I'm not sure on the full story of that. But
Right.
she was executed. She was burned at the stake in front of her son just outside the castle, which to me, there's other candidates, but like she's the most likely to have like unrest in her spirit and why she hasn't moved on.
Right. Yeah. Well, back then, if there was an intelligent woman who knew a lot about herbs and plants, she was a witch. You know.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Edinburgh Castle also has a scruffy black dog
Little puppy.
ghost. So, the apparition wanders around the castle, and is believed to be one of the many dogs from the regiment of dogs they had there for mascots. They have a big pet cemetery there, so I would like to believe it's a battle dog with like a big like spike on
Here
its
comes
helmet.
Kitten.
But and here comes our battle cat. We have a battle cat. So yeah. So
I
that's
bring
one
treats.
of the
I would bring treats, and I would ask to go to the cemetery, and I would leave treats for all the good boys.
Right. It's a good idea.
Best doggos. Okay, ma'am, you cannot get up here. Okay.
Yes, this is our YouTube video, not yours.
She said, "I'm a star." The castle's dungeon also experiences an elevated level of paranormal activity, probably due to all the people that died there from mistreatment and malnutrition. Just a thought, like they went through torture. One prisoner in particular tried to escape by burying himself in a dung barrel. And the dung barrels where they would like shovel the human excrement into a barrel, and then they would take it out and dump it into these like dung heaps. That's what he thought would happen to him. And he did make it past the guards, but the burrow was dumped down the steep rocky slope of Castle Rock.
Yeah.
And killed him in the fall.
Oh, that's rough. Yeah.
It is said that you can smell a strong scent of manure, which is pleasant when he's around, and he's known to try and push people from the battlements. And personally, if I had to spend the rest of eternity smelling like manure and covered in manure, I might try to push people off the battlements too. I don't know.
Oh, that's a horrible ghost. Ugh. Oh,
Yeah.
What is going on with that poopy ghost?
Yay.
Visitors and those wandering the halls also report temperature changes. They report being touched and clothes being tugged on, odd feelings, and unseen hands touching them, and hearing disembodied sounds. So real creepy stuff. Lots of anomalies in photographs as well. You know, you could that's a given.
It would be nice if the spirits could keep their hands to themselves, because even the spirit dog, it doesn't bother anybody. He's
Right.
just there.
And like green fog appears in a lot of photographs, I guess.
That's kind of cool, though.
So yeah. So lots of creepy stuff happens there.
Now, venturing away from the castle, we have Mary King's Close. Close is like an alley, but it's a bunch of different alleys, and they were used for like merchants and things, and eventually for like housing. But Mary King's Close was named after one of the merchants named Mary King, and She lived there in the close in the 17th century. The close was partially demolished in the 18th century due to the building of the Royal Exchange. It was closed for a bit, but the close now operates as a tourist attraction.
Nice, nice. The close has been shrouded in urban legend and myths for years. And rumors since the 17th century. Many people that lived in the close, sometimes up to 21,000 people lived in the close. During its time, it became host to the bubonic plague. So they lived like so close to each other, sometimes like 10 people in a room, you know?
The rooms were quite small, and they would have like almost like it would be entire families in there, sometimes up to like 10 people.
Yeah, you're thinking like in an alleyway, so that's horrific poverty. Just
yeah, and then the bubonic plague would just spread like wildfire through there.
Yeah, and that spelled the disaster for the close.
Absolutely.
So there's also they believe it was an infestation of rats that carried fleas that started the plague.
Not the rats. It was the fleas, not the rats.
Right. We believe in equal ratty rights.
There's also been reports of ghostly creatures, dogs, cats, and small animals. The dog has been a reoccurring apparition there, and it got very comfortable and would curl up in chairs and stuff, which I don't think would bother me. Again, treats for the good boy. But there's also been apparitions of like just like random body parts, like a head, and I read one story about just like a disembodied arm. That doesn't seem that scary to me, just like an arm floating around.
I wouldn't like it.
No. So make him get your arm.
Yeah. A spirit known as Annie was found crying in a room by a Japanese medium named Aiko Gibo. Yeah, Gibo. I was slaughter that name, but she found a sad girl and she was crying, and they believed that she had lost her doll is why she was so sad, and they think that her family left her because she caught the plague. So
they abandoned her so they wouldn't catch the plague.
Yeah.
Which is horrifying.
So she got sick and her family just said adios, which is horrible. But
that is horrible.
You know, the plague just like killed everybody. So
to me, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
As a parent, I'm not going to abandon my kid.
Mm-hmm. So I guess the internet like sent lots of dolls there and to make the child happy, and there's been no problems from her since.
The room was filled with dolls, and the dolls spilled out of the room. Like, we'll have to put up a picture of it. The room was completely filled with dolls. Mm-hmm. Eventually, a lot of those dolls did get donated, except for the original doll that Aiko brought her. And it hasn't been a problem with this little girl since. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Mary King herself is said to also be one of the apparitions that haunts the close, and she is said to wear all black. There's also the story, whose name I can't remember, something Chesney, and he was the last resident of the close. They removed him in 1902. He created his own toilet. He called it his Thunderbox, and he was said to be, he sounds like he was quite the character. Like either he was a lot of fun or he was super annoying, or maybe both, but he was said to wave at people as they passed by while sitting on his Thunderbox doing his business, which is gross. But he is said to be one of the apparitions. He's often seen wandering and looking quite worried. Like maybe he can't find his Thunderbox. I don't know.
What is up with these poopy ghosts? I don't like it.
I don't
like it. I wouldn't go there because it would just be gross.
These are just the more well-known ghosts, but there's a host of other things that go on in the close, like a child that reportedly got stuck in a chimney, and people say they can still hear like scratching in the chimney, and if you reach into the chimney, you'll get scratched, which is spooky. And people report disembodied voices and rocks being thrown and shadow figures. Really interesting.
Okay, well that's creepy. It's been a host of many paranormal investigations, and it's still believed to be haunted. And there has been some explanations for debunking in this area because um, there is a lock next to there called Knowall, and it has green vapors, and the vapors are gas that's can cause hallucinations.
It's highly polluted.
And it kind of goes around the whole area, so it could cause some of these ghost sightings from witnesses. So, but who knows? Something to consider. But we'll have more on this subject in a part 2.
Yeah, more Edinburgh. Yet
Stay
to come.
tuned.